Turns out the pub opens at 3. Let's hit the pub and do that brewery tour.
Welcome everybody to the Lord Howe Island Brewery. My name's Alistair, the lucky guy that gets to make beer on Lord Howe Island. Try to look after the vegetables as best as I can. Today I will talk through how and why we make beer on the island. Then we'll go across to the glass houses. I'll show you some of the vegetables that we're growing. Then we will go and talk about the history of the Kentia pond, history at this site. When we brew at this scale, we brew from malt. Malt is a term for a grain that's been partially germinated and then toasted to varying levels. You can malt a variety of types of grains. Barley is typically the favorite of brewers because barley has enzymes that break carbohydrates down into simple sugars. Some of you drinking the lager, that's brewed with a really lightly toasted Pilsner malt. Some of you might be drinking the pale ale. Slightly darker colors come from a caramelized malt that as they heat it, the sugars on the outside of the grain start caramelizing, and that'll give you some of those toffee, caramel-like flavors as well as that golden color to the beer. You can imagine if I'm brewing a dark beer, I'm going to need some really roasted malt. So if I'm brewing stout, I might use about 5% of this in the recipe. This will give you those dark chocolate, coffee-like aromas. Being a brewer, we have a little bit less rules than winemakers. We can use a wide variety of fermentable sugars. We're very lucky in that most of the year we've got a beehive on our site, so we include a little bit of our local honey into the lager, lightens the body, adds some floral characteristics. Yeah, it's a nice way of incorporating some of the beautiful endemic plants that grow just on this island. When I'm putting a batch of beer together, our batches of beer are about 700 liters, and in order to make that volume of beer, I need about 125 kilograms of grain. So that's about 5 of those big grain bags. Every kilogram of malt that we ship over, we can make 6 to 7 kilograms of beer. So that's one of the reasons that we brew on the island. Shipping is very expensive, about $700 for a cubic meter. That adds up real quick, especially if you're bringing kegs over from the mainland, serving the kegs, and then having to ship the kegs off, the empties, same rate. So we like to bring over a ton of malt at a time and make 7 tons of beer. It obviously took a bit to ship over the tanks initially, but over time, the shipping load to the island will decrease. And if taken care of, tanks could be here for the next 100 years. When I'm developing a recipe, I'll weigh out the different types of grains depending on the flavors that I'm trying to achieve in the beer. And then I put it through the mill. I catch that crushed up grain in the same grain bags, and then I'll walk it over into the brewery. On a brew day, I'll take all that crushed up grain. First thing I do is I fill my mash tun about halfway full with very warm water, tip in that crushed grain, give it a big old stir, try and make it sort of a homogeneous kind of porridge, which is called a mash. I try to hit a very specific temperature, somewhere around 66 degrees. What happens in those 30 minutes is all the carbs in those grains start breaking down into simple sugars. By the end of the 30 minutes, the whole mixture has become incredibly sweet. So this vessel has a very special bottom. It's got like sieve-like plates, and all that sugary liquid can drain through the plates, leaving the husks of the grain behind. I then pump that liquid across into my kettle and start filling it up with this beautiful sweet barley. In order to get all of that volume, I've activated a spray ball that rinses all those sugars off that grain. Then what I'll do is I'll see how much sugar I was able to extract, and the sugar concentration of this liquid is quite important because it dictates how alcoholic the beer is. And the water that I'm using in this whole brewing process is the rainwater that we catch on top of our glass houses. So when I get that sugar concentration right, I'll fire up my LPG powered burner, brings all 800 liters to a rolling boil. It boils for 60 minutes, and that functions to sterilize the liquid. During those 60 minutes, I'll start adding hops. Hops are the flower of a vine, it grows in colder climates. This vine can grow about 10 meters tall. When you boil hops, it imparts bitterness on the liquid, so that balances out that malty sweetness from the barley. And then also, hops has some amazing flavors. Depending on where it's grown and the variety of hops, get all sorts of flavors from peach and passion fruit, citrus, piney, resinous flavors. So in our lager, I've got some Australian and some New Zealand hops. In the Pilsner, I've got German hops. Pale ale, I've got a mix of American, Australian, and New Zealand hops. And I mentioned I use about 125 kilograms of the malt. For the hops in the lager, I'm using about 500 grams. Pale ale, I might use about 4 kilograms in the batch. This whole process of extracting the sugars from the barley, boiling it, adding the hops, and pumping it out takes me about 8 hours. Very last thing that I do on a brew day is I'll add my yeast. At this brewery, we brew both lagers and ales. and that's defined by the species of yeast that you use. So once I add the yeast gets to work eating all those sugars. After an ale has finished fermenting, which takes about 2 weeks, or a lager, it takes about 4 weeks, the beer is ready to be drunk. One of my favorite features of the brewery that we designed when we were building it, we decided to plumb the bar straight into the bottom of the tanks. There's a black line to the bottom of the tanks that goes all the way through to the taps. That keeps the beer very fresh. That beer is never exposed to oxygen or sunlight or warm temperatures. One of 2 glass houses that we predominantly grow tomatoes in. We've also got a new variety of capsicum in that row. We predominantly grow pizza ingredients, that's the aim. In the other glass house I've got chilies. But you'll notice that these plants are planted in these white bags. Bags contain coconut coir, which is the fiber of the coconut. You'll see there's little white drippers into each of the bags. And that drips a hydroponic solution to each of the plants, feeding it and watering it at the same time. And these bags are good in that because we're constantly replenishing them with nutrients, we can use them for several years. Plant them in winter and I rip them out in winter. Over those 12 months, the plants can grow to be about 14 meters. They can't go straight up. So what I was here this morning doing, as the plant reaches this horizontal wire, I'll release a few rungs of twine from those hangers. Plant slumps down. I move the hanger, say a meter to the left. Plant grows up again. As it grows up, I'll wrap it with the twine. The wire again drops. So we end up with a long horizontal stem and then a short growing tip. Oyster mushrooms are one of the easiest types of mushrooms to grow. They grow on a wide variety of agricultural waste products. We took the tomato stems from the previous crop. I actually pasteurized them in the mash tun, the first special of the brewery. Added hot water on top of all these crushed up mulch tomato stems, heated them to 70. Then as we pulled the crushed up tomato stems, we into the buckets, I added the oyster mushroom culture, and the mushroom culture took over this sort of cellulose-rich substrate. If you've ever turned over a log in the forest, you see those white threads. That's called mycelium, and that forms the sort of main part of the mushroom organism. This is a way for the mushroom to spread its spores and create further organisms. The majority of the organism is in the bucket, eating those tomato stems and converting them to mushrooms that we put on the pizzas. Mushrooms are very quick to grow. They took about 2 weeks to take over the food source, and then we put them in this humidified room, and after about a week the mushrooms come out. They double in size every 24 hours. All the fresh greens for the site. We have kale on our sausage pizza, margarita pizzas with basil on. There's rocket on the chicken pizza roll, and then we've got some salads that obviously use the lettuces. And this is also grown in a similar system. With this whole site that we're walking around is known as the nursery. It was set up by the board that governed the island in the 70s, and it was set up to germinate Kentia palm seeds all over the island. It gained popularity soon after the island was discovered. Samples of these palms were sent to Europe. They found their way to Queen Victoria. She gave this palm from this exotic island a level of status. Soon everyone wanted to get one. Back then the island didn't have much industry. There was no airport, so there wasn't much tourism going on. The island needed jobs. Everyone went out and picked palm and sent these palms or palm seeds overseas. And then, as the story goes, a Dutch businessman figured he'd visit the island, and he managed to organize a contract that bought 90% of all the seeds that the island was able to harvest, and so all these seeds started going to Netherlands. The rest of the world wasn't too chuffed. They couldn't get their hands on these palm seeds, so they just had to plant what they had and wait for them to get to maturity. Someone from the island thought after a while, let's go see what the Dutch are doing with these seeds. They were germinating them in a mixture of peat moss and perlite, and then on-selling them to growers for about 6 times the price. So they thought, no, we need to bring that profit back to the island. It's now forbidden to export palm seed. You have to export seedlings. This site was set up to germinate the seed. In its heyday in the 70s and 80s, there were 26 of these size greenhouses germinating palm seed, and they were sending 5 million seedlings. However, the rest of the world's palms reached maturity after those 15 years or so. They were able to produce the palms a lot cheaper than the island could. They didn't have the overheads, they didn't have the $700 cube shipping. In the meantime, the island had also had an airport built, tourism was taking off, less people needed the palm job. The site was sort of shut down. Word went out to the community, who wants to take on the site and what you want to do with it. My boss and his Dutch partner, son of the original importer, said, we still believe in the Lord Howe Kentia. We want to take on the site. We want to continue to grow Kentia palm microbrewery, start growing vegetables. So if the ship gets cancelled, we got some resilience. Put in a food offering to make this a bit of a hub. So little by little, we've been sort of ticking off that list. And so we do still grow Kentias here. Not quite at the scale, but we've still got 4 of these size greenhouses, all growing palms. So this is the way that the Dutch were doing it. We get seeds picked in March, April, and we buy seeds from locals who go out and either climb the trees, use ladders, pick the seeds, bring them to us. We buy them from them. Then in winter, we will plant them into these boxes, about 700 seeds to a box. Then we move them into these greenhouses. The heat of the following summer brings on the germination. Around about this time of year, we start harvesting. They'll pick the palm just like I have, grade it according to its size, rinse off any peat moss, and then count them into bundles of 20, soak them in water for a couple of days, dry them off, flat pack them in boxes, and ship them to this Dutch business partner. With just 2 ladies picking and sorting, we still export about 400,000 of these.
How good is this, eh? Second last night on Lord Howe Island. Walking along the beach in the water. There's basically there is nobody else really here at all. Watching the sunset. No sunset. Getting ready for another night. Astronomy under the stars. This time on the local tennis courts. Thankfully it's next door to where I'm staying, so I'm just going to carry the scopes over, get them all set up shortly. But wow. If this place isn't just perfection, I don't know what is. Like, it takes a lot for me to feel comfortable and at home, but I do here. I just spent the last 2 hours hanging out with the head brewer of Lord Howe Island Brewery at the nursery. Did a tour with them and then just hung out with him and just chatted about astronomy and beer and enjoyed the new beer that he'd released. Man, they really know how to make you feel like you're part of a community. It is tight-knit, it is friendly. It is just amazing. I'm quite sad that this is my second last night on the island. I'm going to miss this place. I really am. And I really hope I get to come back here again to do this again. It has been a highlight of my life to be able to come out here to a place I never thought I'd ever be able to come to. To Danielle from Love Lord Howe, I am forever thankful to you for getting me out here to experience this and to share the night sky with such passionate people, be they locals and be they tourists. The passion is there and they have all thoroughly enjoyed it, and I have absolutely enjoyed sharing it with them. But as I said, I've got to get back, get my scopes and set up for my second last tour of the night sky. One more tomorrow night. We'll see you on the tennis courts at Blue Lagoon. Tennis court, running an astronomy session. What gives? Ta-da! And also, ta-da! Tonight's session will be brought to you by the Australian Open. They don't know that yet. They'll be heading over shortly, probably in the next 10 or 15 minutes, and we will get started on tonight's session where we're going to start with some planets. I can see already Venus and Jupiter, not Mars yet, and that's about it. But yeah, in the next 20-30 minutes we'll start seeing more and more stars, and people will begin to arrive, and we'll get stuck into the second last session on this amazing adventure. I'm looking forward to it. One night to go. Last night's session was actually really cool. Yeah, they were lovely people. Elderly group, around about 20 odd. We got to see a whole lot of stuff. They were all very excited, asked some pretty cool and interesting questions. And then when that was finished, which it only went for about an hour, one of the other locals here who's got a Celestron 9.25 Evolution, who's having trouble with it, brought it down, and we sat it out there and had a go of it and tried to get it working. Hit some dramas though, which I think I may have solved by doing a bit of research and having a chat to a few people that I know. So tonight we're going to test it out again. Today I'm just going to pop down to the newsagents or the post office and grab a gift for my daughter and go for another walk and have some lunch at the Crooked Post again. got a little wood hen. I think she'll like it. It's very cute. Another delicious lunch at Crooked Post. So my two favourite places for food here are easily the Crooked Post and Lord Howe Brewery. Both those places amazing. Amazing people, amazing staff at both of them. The food at each of them is just delicious. And of course they've both got great beer. I'm off on my last hike on Lord Howe Island now. Might go and check out Flagstaff first, which is just, yeah. Little plaque with all of the distances to all of the places. It was all in miles, not kilometres, miles. But I'm a long way from home. The first part of today's hike takes in the first part of the hike I did last weekend. I won't bore you with that part again. That's tough work. But I'm at the same spot I was the other day. Absolutely wrecked. It's not sunny either, it's not warm, it's just a tough climb. It's just started to rain on me as well, but that's actually helping, cooling me off. The breeze is lovely. This walk, as tough as it is, it's like very steep down and each knees I've got to go all the way back up. It's absolutely beautiful, calm, peaceful. I can hear the beach in the distance. I just know that once I get to the bottom I've got to go back, but I will continue. I've come to a fork in the road. I could go that way or that way. I feel if I go that way, that's going to go to the Gulch. And I feel if I go that way, that's going to go to North Beach. So I'm going to go this way. Even when it's raining, it's still a beautiful place. I can just make out the two big mountains. Cloud's very, very low. Not sure about the old Gulch still. I'm toying with the idea, do I, don't I? Don't I, do I? I'm going to have a look around here for a bit, then work out if I really want to go and hit that one up. And I mean, I'm so close, so we'll see. Alright, so I have consulted my my maps and I'm going to do Old Gulch. Let's go find Old Gulch. So Old Gulch is apparently only about, well, less than 200 metres up here. So, and apparently Mount Eliza's about a 20-minute hike up, so I'm thinking I might do that one as well. Then it only leaves the big ones, which I can do next time. But for now, let's go check out Old Gulch. Lord Howe Island, you continue to surprise me with your beauty. Wow, let's go check it out. It's so different to every other part of Lord Howe Island that I've been to. So different. It's like giant rocks everywhere. It is gorgeous. I'm going to have a bit more of a look around. Another one checked off the list of things to see on Lord Howe Island. Let's go to the top of Mount Eliza. See what the fuss is all about. See how much it's going to hurt to get up there physically. Up there. See where those people are up there? That's where I'm going to go. Up there. Well, it's a cracking view from up here. Again, Lord Howe has delivered in spades. Not one bad hike, not one bad view. It has just been absolutely breathtaking and astounding the entire time. I'm glad I pushed myself to go on all of these walks this week. I would have kicked myself if I hadn't, and it's good to be back out hiking again. I've had an absolute blast doing astronomy here, and I really do hope I get to come back to do it again. But even if I don't get to come back to do it again, I will find a way to come back to this island. One more session left tonight, somewhere down there. Then I'll be helping one of the locals with his telescope again. Came up with a couple more solutions that might work. Then after that, it's on the plane and back home to Melbourne, where when I land I have to head off out into the bush to do another astronomy event. But I love it. I really love it. I wish I could do this as a job. I really do. It'd be amazing. But for now, I'm going to hike back down and then back up a mountain and then back down a mountain to get back to my cabin, where I'm going to have an ice cold beer. See you back there. I'm rested up and I've made a decision before tonight's session. I'm going to have one last hit out at the local brewery. Another little session at the brewery done and dusted. Heading back now to get ready for tonight's session. Kind of sad, that's the last time I'm going to hit up that brewery for a beer for, well, could be a year or more or longer. Just depends. This place is just so awesome. Anyway, I've got to start walking fast, get back, get ready for tonight's session. See you down the beach. Saturday morning. I mean, it's like 12:30 a.m. and I'm just kind of settling down after a massive final night. Had clear skies with cloud patches for the last session, and then after that hung out with Danielle from Lord Howe and also another guy, Tim, who runs the Crooked Post, because he needed his scope fixed. We spent a few hours trying to fix it before I realised the scope was upside down on the mount. Anyway, we fixed it, got it running. Great evening. Absolutely loved it. Have had an absolute blast hanging out here at Lord Howe Island. This was a great finish to a wonderful weekend. Wonderful week and a bit. I'm going to go and hit the sack because I'm going to be up at like 6 to start getting ready to pack everything. Got scope outside imaging. It's on Banana Nebula at the moment. Should be finished at about 5 a.m. I'll set the alarm for 5, go out, turn it off, and then just start packing anyway. Got a big day ahead of me tomorrow. See you in the morning. Well, I'm all checked in, waiting for my plane to arrive to head back to sunny Melbourne. It's been an awesome time here in Lord Howe Island. I can't wait to come back and have more adventures. Don't forget to like, subscribe, merch at the merch store, AstroPuNk.store. See you on the next one.